It's a big win for Bharat against Pakistan's state-sponsored radical Islamist terror. On the 22nd of April, Pakistani terrorists targeted innocent tourists. They singled out Hindus and killed them at point blank range, asked them to read the Kalma. And if they couldn't, they were killed at point blank range. Finally, in July, those terrorists were initially spotted, and for over 15 days, the security forces tracked them. Finally, when they nailed them, the terrorists were apparently napping after a whole night walk when the security forces were tracking them and waiting for an opportune moment that they could be neutralized. So it's a big win for security forces after that Pahalgam terror attack. This was a joint anti-terror operation by the Special Forces of the Indian Army, the Rashtriya Rifles Battalion, the Jammu and Kashmir Police, the Special Operations Group, and the Central Reserve Police Force in the Harwan forest area. This is the upper reaches of Srinagar, the Dachigam Reserve Forest area. So 3 terrorists were killed in Operation Mahadev, including the mastermind of the Pahalgam terror attack, an ex-commando of the Pakistan Army SSG, Hashim Musa. Now, Musa was named as the top conspirator and the executor of the Baisaran attack. He was responsible before that for the October 2024 Sonamarg, the Z Mode tunnel attack, again on innocent people, on people who were working on that tunnel project. Laborers were killed, singled out and killed. Now, sources say some of the nomads, the Gujars who were crossing that area with their sheep, they spotted some movement about a fortnight, close to a fortnight ago. And the moment they saw the nearest army camp, they alerted the army. The army used both technical intelligence, signal intelligence, and human intelligence. They triangulated that area, identified the general area where the terrorists were, and a joint forces operation was mounted. 4 para SF was what sources tell India Today. It was leading the operation. So the 3 Pakistani Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorists were spotted. They were tracked, but the army waited for an opportune moment. The army had intercepted suspicious communication and had been tracking this Lashkar team, now we are told, for close to a fortnight. The information was between 5 and 7 terrorists of splinter groups. Now, 5 to 7 terrorists, both of Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, they were operating in tandem. They were hiding in a particular area. They were neutralized this morning in the Lidwas area. 3 of those 4, between 5 and 7, have been neutralized. The search is on for the remaining terrorists, possibly scattered in the forest, because the terrorists were also moving in smaller groups. We are still waiting for an official word from the army, but initial information seems to suggest that the 3 terrorists who were involved in the Pahalgam terror attack have been killed.
These are the Dachigam heights, and this area is critical. It is an access point. It's very strategically important because this connects many areas of South Kashmir. Through the forest route, you can reach almost all of South Kashmir, from Pahalgam to Kokarnag and to other areas. So this was being frequently used by Jaish and Lashkar groups. Right now also there is drone activity that one can clearly hear the sound of the drones. And here also at the gates you have the Indian Army which has been deployed. Now, as far as the operation is concerned, 3 Lashkar-e-Toiba militants have been gunned down. One name that is significant is of Suleiman Shah alias Musa Fauji, who is said to be an ex-Pakistan Special Services Group member and is on the most wanted list with 20 lakh rupees on his head. Before Pahalgam, his name had surfaced in the investigation of the Sonmarg tunnel terror attack, and then also Bhatpatri army convoy attack. In Jammu side also he had carried out attacks, but it is Pahalgam which made him the most wanted. His name came up, a sketch of him was released by the J&K police after the Pahalgam attack as one of the key accused, and finally today we've been told that he, along with 2 others, have been killed in a hideout which they had made, in fact a night camping site deep inside the forest area. Here one can clearly see the army activity, the special forces, para units going in. You also had other army units who were rushing inside now. The area is still under cordon. The search operation is continuing. And we've been told that there could be more in the periphery, and that's why the SOP is that the operation will continue. But massive success for the security agencies. Professor Muzaffar Ahmed, Meet Farid, Dachigam for India Today.
एक दो दिन का नहीं है, ये लगातार जारी रहेगा जब तक यहाँ पूरी तरह से अमन कायम नहीं होता। तो आज अगर यही बात पार्लियामेंट में दोहराई गई तो कोई नई बात नहीं है ना। अच्छा हुआ, अच्छा है कि पार्लियामेंट में आज इस चीज पे डिस्कशन हो रहा है, क्योंकि ऑपरेशन सिंदूर पे डिस्कशन तो ठीक है, उससे पहले पहलगाम पे तो डिस्कशन करना जरूरी है। और पहलगाम के डिस्कशन में जो हाल ही में एलजी साहब ने ये कहा कि जरूर इसमें लापरवाही हुई है, इसमें इंटेलिजेंस और सिक्योरिटी की फेलियर का जो है हाथ रहा है, तो उस बात पे भी पार्लियामेंट में बात होनी चाहिए कि आखिरकार अगर इंटेलिजेंस का फेलियर रहा, अगर सिक्योरिटी का फेलियर रहा, तो उसके लिए किसको जिम्मेदार ठहराया गया। ऑपरेशन सिंदूर पे उसके बाद बात होगी।
कश्मीर के पहाड़ी क्षेत्रों में घने जंगलों के बीच जहां माना जा रहा है कि पाकिस्तानी आतंकवादी जो घुसपैठ करके जिन्होंने हाइड आउट्स बनाए हैं उनके खिलाफ ये ऑपरेशन महादेव शुरू किया गया है और सेना को बड़ी कामयाबी मिली है। सेना के जांबाज वीरों को, जम्मू कश्मीर पुलिस और सीआरपीएफ के जांबाज वीरों को हम बधाई देते हैं जिन्होंने ऑपरेशन महादेव के तहत एक बड़ी कामयाबी हासिल की है और 3 विदेशी पाकिस्तानी आतंकवादियों का सफाया किया है।
This is the news the nation was waiting. I think big, huge success for the security forces and the J&K police. In fact, since 22nd of April, everyone in the country was waiting that where are these terrorists, and it has come at a very, very appropriate time. The discussion about Operation Sindoor post Pahalgam attack is in fact going on in Parliament. Why they have come to Dachigam area? Because they must be looking for an opportunity to attack Amarnath Yatra. The Amarnath Yatra crosses Srinagar city.
Big point being made by SP Vaid, former DGP of Jammu and Kashmir, that why did these terrorists from Pahalgam come to this Dachigam area? Were they hiding? Were they trying to exfiltrate? Or were they heading once again towards the Amarnath Yatra route and once again target the Amarnath Yatra? So it wasn't just terrorists who were trying to escape, and that would also indicate that if 3 or 4 terrorists are still out there, there still is clear and present danger. I have the finest team on Indian television now joining me on this special broadcast. Kamaljeet Kaur Sandhu, Ashraf Vani and Sandeep Unnithan. You couldn't get better correspondents tracking this big story. And Kamal, you've been talking to your sources throughout on the movement of terrorists and how they were tracked for quite some time, from human intelligence to electronic intelligence to signal intelligence, Kamal.
Well, yes, this is a combination of both human intelligence, because the nomads did confirm to the security forces that there is movement of terrorists based on which operations were launched. But remember, there's also the small communication device, a Chinese device, which was used during the Baisaran attack by the Pahalgam attackers. That was on the 15th of April. And thereafter, what we saw was there was an indication that on 11th of July, this was activated near the Dachigam area. That's when security forces formed different teams. So there was army, there was JKP, the CRPF, all combing through the jungles trying to find them. And then there was a further confirmation which came in on the 26th, 2 days ago. That is when there was a reconfirmation because the signal was on. Now the input was that there are 3 foreign terrorists. The information was that there were 3 Lashkar terrorists. So there was a high probability that these are the same as the module of Pahalgam attackers. But remember, even as we speak, there is a police team which is on its way towards the encounter site, and they are the ones which will confirm. Meanwhile, there will be a double verification, because remember, these perpetrators were fed, they were provided support by two of the locals in Pahalgam. They would eventually also be called in. But yes, in terms of identification, at least one of them seems to be resemble Hashim Musa, based on which there's an early confirmation coming in that this is the perpetrator. But remember, a final official confirmation is still awaited on that. And what is important and significant is who are the other two.
Yes.
They have been looking like Yasir and Haris, and what their roles are going to be. So all this is going to be very important. But yes, as far as the operation Mahadev is concerned, now this is a clean operation, because even if you see the videos and look through the photographs, you can see very well that this was a precision strike. It was a chance encounter. These terrorists were caught napping, because remember, in these kind of drills, they walk in kilometers and kilometers, and once they tire out, they usually do take a break. And it seems they were caught napping, and that is when the four paras chanced upon their opportunity. They struck at them. There was a massive fire, and even before they could reach out to the weapon, it seems they were neutralized. And that is why what you see is a little retaliation, either coming back or only even around the shrubs and the trees. But clearly, the operation itself is under scanner at this point of time, because remember, the confirmation of the identification is yet to be formally done. And remember, this could be a big success, and obviously the identification of the two others and whether they were involved in the Pahalgam attack as well.
Stay with me, Kamal. Before I bring in Ashraf, let me also tell our viewers, Lieutenant General KJS Dhillon, former Kashmir Corps Commander, also joins us on this broadcast. And that big scoop that India Today's Kamaljeet Kaur Sandhu is getting India Today right now. It was the communication device. Let me get you the latest on that communication device that led the security forces to the perpetrators. The same communication device, that Chinese device that was used before the Baisaran incident, and then again recently in the past 2 days. This was a satellite phone active around the 11th of July. Not just that, human intelligence. Remember, when technical intelligence and human intelligence come together and they operate in tandem, that's when a confirmation actually comes in. So the Gujars with their sheep, as they were moving towards this area, they saw movement of terrorists and informed the security forces. Scoop number 4. Chinese satellite phone was found active recently. It was found active before Baisaran, then 11th of July, and then again recently. So what did these security forces do? They laid a multi-tier grid to ensure that terrorists do not slip out of the security grid. So you had the Central Reserve Police Force, you had the Jammu and Kashmir Police, the Special Operations Group, and then the Army, the Rashtra Rifles, and then you had the Para SF. The terrorists, as Kamal was just reporting, the terrorists were actually found napping, literally caught napping. They apparently had walked through the night. That's the time security forces were tracking them. And just as they laid this tarpaulin and they were sleeping underneath the tarpaulin, the forces were lying in wait. They waited for an opportune moment and opened fire. The terrorists were killed in resting position. What's been confirmed by sources, not yet officially, that Hashim Musa, the team leader, had lost a lot of weight. Was he attempting to change his look, or were they running out of resources? We will continue to explore that. Before I bring in General Tiny Dhillon and Sandeep Punithan, Ashraf, any word from sources on the identity of the other two? How long before there's an official confirmation, Ashraf?
Yes, absolutely, Gaurav. Basically, everyone is waiting for the official confirmation, and even it was scheduled a press conference by the 15th Corps here in Srinagar, but that has been postponed due to some reasons. But probably the reason seems that the army wants us to get it cross-checked by the Jammu and Kashmir police, because the most part of the intelligence inputs is being handled by the Jammu and Kashmir police, and there are different branches and the sections in the Jammu and Kashmir police, particularly Special Operation Group, which look after the other evidences of these terrorists that relates to the CCTV footages captured in the earlier encounters. But one thing is clear, why the biggest question, why Dachigam was opted by these terrorists to hide. On 22nd April, when Pahalgam terror attack took place, we on the India Today were first channel who said that probably these terrorists who carried out the heinous terror attack in the Basaran Valley could be the same who have carried out the terror attack in under construction tunnel at Sonmarg, because from Sonmarg to Pahalgam it is easy to reach. You have to go through the ridges of the what we can say Mahadev top, and then you will reach Tral, then you can reach Pahalgam, then from Pahalgam to avoid other main routes you can reach back to the Dachigam, which is very near to the Srinagar. Then on through those mountain ridges you can reach back to the Sonmarg or Kangan or any other part including Bandipora. This is the track which is mostly being used by the terrorists in the recent times, including in the Kishtwar, Doda, Kutwa, everywhere we have seen this pattern, particularly by the TRF groups. They not only have changed the communication devices into the ultra phones which are Chinese made, but also they are trying to avoid the human contact with the villagers, with the nomads, with their own sources and overground workers. That is why to catch them or to neutralize them was getting difficult, not only here in the Pahalgam, but also even we have seen in the Kishtwar and Doda. But one
Stay
thing
with
was
me for a
clear
moment.
that
Let me bring in
Dachigam
General
is a
Tiny Dhillon and we'll
trusted
continue
hideout
this
with the
conversation.
terrorists.
General Dhillon, how difficult would an operation like this be in that Dachigam forest area that starts not far from where your core headquarters was, from the Badami Bagh cantonment? That's where the Chinar Corps headquarters is. How far from there were these terrorists hiding, and how difficult is it to mount a military operation like the one that was mounted, Operation Mahadev?
Gaurav, good evening and good evening to all your viewers. Just to explain the terrain which exists in that area. As you said, Badami Bagh cantonment, behind that there is a hillock, and further behind that and in between the Srinagar-Sonmarg highway is this Mahadev Ridge and Dachigam forest. Dachigam is a national park, and it goes into the Dachigam valley, goes into Mahadev Ridge. And if you walk along Mahadev Ridge, which is a very densely vegetated ridge, and go further east of Tralbaul in the village Lam and further on to Mahadev Ridge, you can actually hit Pahalgam, the Baisaran Valley, without having to cross any major river or any major township or big villages. You would come across small hamlets, you would come across deras as they are called, the small little living places for the nomads or the Gujjars and Bakarwals, and you can come into Dachigam forest. As was being explained, it's a very difficult terrain, it's a very thickly vegetated jungle, and I always say primary, secondary and tertiary jungles, and at times the undergrowth is 8 to 10 feet high, and the big trees being anything up to 100 feet and beyond. And the visibility at places, intersect visibility is down to 2 meters. That means if a person walking ahead of you, you miss him by 2 meters, you just miss him. You have to shout at him. And in such a terrain, when you are, trailing a terrorist group of say about 3 people or whatever, it is very difficult because you are not getting the line of sight. The communication equipments in this type of terrain, in this thick vegetation, don't work. And even the satellite links don't work properly. Mobiles don't work here. So there's a lot of terrain analysis and terrain knowledge which you have to have. There's a lot of reading of the previous movements in this area, as also a lot of appreciation of where the terrorists can go, which area has more number of OGWs and sympathizers, and it's all military appreciation.
So military appreciation.
Hats of the team which was trailing it, that did it to the precision that these people were literally caught napping. When the security forces hit that temporary hideout, as it is called, because it's just a sheet of polythene on top, and these people are resting. And the 2 factors which came up in your discussion, one is they were fatigued, that means they were being chased and they were running, or they were always on the move for last few days. Secondly, the point came up that he has lost weight. He has lost weight not to change the look, he has lost weight because for last 3 months, the security forces were denying them the access to the villages and the rations. There could only probably would have been very few places where they could have accessed food. So naturally, lack of food would have made sure that they lose weight. But notwithstanding, identification, confirmation would bring out a lot of clarification.
Sir, I want to once again come back to the Baisaran operations and Operation Mahadev. Terrorists killed 26 innocent people, 25 Hindus, asking them their names, singling them out and killing them at point blank range. Now 3 terrorists have been neutralized. Sandeep, the fact that these terrorists have been killed, their mobile phones will reveal a lot of information even about those who may have assisted them within our country.
Absolutely, Gaurav. This is an intelligence windfall for the security forces, and it's a 3-month-long manhunt that's ended today with these bodies being recovered. And of course, we're looking at all of the equipment that they were carrying. They were, I can see a lot of rifle grenades over there. GP-25 rifle grenades point to them being very heavily armed. 2 AK-47s were recovered. 1 M4 rifle was recovered. There are talks of them using the Chinese Huawei satellite phones linked to the Baidu constellation, which is how they were possibly navigating and communicating with their handlers. And also, Gaurav, there is also that very damning indictment by the eyewitnesses to the Baisaran massacre, where they said that these terrorists were wearing body cams, and they were actually videoing all of the victims as they were gunning them down, possibly to use as some kind of propaganda material. So it's very important we recover all of this and know the identity of all the people who helped them, not just in India but also across the border. I see a lot of plastic bags over there. Possibly they were carrying their food in it, and it would have come from local sources. But as General Dhillon was pointing to, Gaurav, the fact is that this was a very specialized unit, and we've been hearing about this unit for more than a year now, that they were specially trained. They were trained like what the Americans call the LRRP concept, the long range reconnaissance patrol concept, which goes deep into the adversary's territory, conducts operation independent of ground resources there. They don't have to contact too many people for reasons of operations security. They carry out the mission and then they remain undercover. This is exactly the model that these 3 terrorists seem to have followed, which is to remain under deep cover in the forests as we're seeing right now. And one thing, Gaurav, that I noticed as these images were flashing is that that the way that the tent was tied, the tarpaulin was tied, I remember seeing it somewhere, and I went to my copy of the US Army Jungle Warfare Field Manual FM 90-5. That is exactly the way jungle warriors tie their tents when they're in the forest, whether it's a tent or a mosquito net. This is how they tie it. Just tells you the kind of level of training and motivation that these people had been equipped with. This was not any ordinary bunch of terrorists, Gaurav. This is a very, very specialized, special forces trained hit squad, exactly like the ones that we saw in 2611, trained by the SSG Navy. And in this case, I'm sure you would find evidence of them being trained by the Pak SSG as well, Gaurav.
Hopefully, we shall have those information. General Dhillon, before I come to you, Mir Farid joins us from Srinagar with the latest. And Mir, you have several updates. Do we have either a confirmation about the identity of the other two, point 1 and point 2? Any information? Whether their mobile phones were recovered, satellite phones recovered, body camera, did they have their body cams or any other images? Of course, that takes a long time to come in, but that would be a treasure trove of information as far as investigators are concerned, Mir.
Yes, Gaurav. Any material, equipment, any kind of stuff that they get from these hideouts is always very important for the security agencies. One, obviously, for intelligence purposes, and also the modus operandi. They get to know how they're operating of late. And in this case, this is the Dachigam. In fact, I'm outside the Dachigam forest area, the sanctuary. And from the last at least 15-20 days, it was made out of bound for civilians. So quite clearly, something was cooking. And the army had taken it over. So that tells you that they were after them. There was precise intel But this is a very complicated area. This is a dense jungle forest area, thick foliage, lot of space to hide and to evade the security forces. And that's why they have been using this strategically also. This is a center point. You can access many areas of South Kashmir simply following the forest route. And one of the commanders of Lashkar, Suleiman, Fauji also, as he's known because he was one of the retired personnel of the Special Services Group, he was not only involved in this attack, but they say that previously at least three more such attacks, he was the mastermind. Now again, officially nothing from the army, from the police, they're tight-lipped, no confirmation or connection with the Pahalgam angle, but our sources say that there's 80% probability that at least one of the three is directly linked with Pahalgam attack. And right now, though all the evidence and all the eyewitness accounts of the Pahalgam attack, the people who were arrested by the NIA, they may also identify them, and they're trying to be sure-shot before announcing it. But as of now,
stay with me. Let me bring in General Dhillon once again into this conversation. General Dhillon, the mobile cameras, the body cams, the ammunition, the weapons that they were carrying and other associated warlike stores. What kind of information will the security forces be able to glean from what the terrorists had, and how can that help in future operations?
Gaurav, the type of information which is available as of now indicates, this is what you call that battle indicators. They indicate what type of a group it was. They had specialized weapons, they had specialized equipment, including, as Kamaljeet ma'am was telling, that satellite phone. They had M4 rifle, and they had a lot of material to survive in jungle. So all these indicate they were trained subgroup, they were trained group, and they were a special group. When I say special group, the normal terrorists who roam around the jungles of Kashmir depend on the local villages or local, deras for their day-to-day food. And only the people whom you don't want to be seen by any civilian so that they don't get the information leaked are the people who are given this type of special equipment. And now that they were killed while they were resting, so they wouldn't have had time to erase a lot of things, or do away with a lot of documents or technical information which will be found on the gadgets. So the security forces, security agencies will analyze all those things. They are analyzed at local level and then at a very, very high level in Delhi by the very sophisticated forensics teams. So the lot of information will come out of it, which will also be used for future operations, as also to prove their connection with whatever operations they have carried out so far, or whatever attacks they have carried out so far. So as you use the word treasure trove, yes, it will be a big treasure trove if we are able to get those gadgets. And those gadgets, as per my experience, as of now, the way the encounter has happened, I don't think they would have got time to erase anything. So
yeah,
it's
because
a
as
big
Kamal
success,
was reporting,
and let's wait and watch. And I think more and more will emerge from this.
yeah, Kamal was reporting that these terrorists were apparently sleeping or resting when virtually, Kamal, a double tap on the forehead of one of the terrorists from a sniper, at least the bullet seems to indicate a part of his head is completely blown off. The manner in which they killed the innocent Hindus at Pahalgam, it just goes on to show there is justice. But Kamal, there still is clear and present danger. Mr. Vaid, former DGP Jammu and Kashmir, was indicating that if this is a group, a bigger group, 3 terrorists have been neutralized. If there were 5 or 7, the other 4 could well try and target the Amarnath Yatra.
Well, that's always the case, and that is why no chance is always taken as far as Amarnath Yatra is concerned, whether it's RFIDs, whether it's deployment of security forces, multi-tiered security is deployed. But let's look at it. There are at least 150 terrorists which are still currently active, most of them foreign terrorists. There's a little local support really coming in. So they would still be in the hills. There are various groups. Some of them could be splinter groups. But remember, they're all trained differently. This particular set of Pahalgam attackers, as Dylan intelligence was saying, are the SSG trained. So they have para commando training, and that is why they can not only move in stealth, but they can survive in the jungles for so long. They're also carrying not just equipment, but also food that they could cook there. And that is what is going to be a wealth of information once the full recovery is done, because it's not just arms and ammunition, it's also the survival toolkit which they really had. This is the sort, and remember, when these terrorists really cross over, they know that this is going to be a limited time for them, because they don't have much of a lifespan later on, because they eventually either run out of energy or food or support system. So that is when, and even in this particular case, as you were mentioning very clearly, there was information coming in from the nomads, there was a tech information, so they were being zeroed in, but they were getting lucky elsewhere. The luck simply ran out, and it was time for 4 paras to actually move in, and they moved in with stealth. They spotted this particular tarpaulin from way distant, and they also actually zeroed in that they were carrying weapons. That is when they actually opened fire. And if you see, they have not actually, there are no firing marks on trees or other areas or shrubs. So that means it's been a precision attack, giving very little time for these particular terrorists to really retaliate or attack or even flee. And they were killed. And obviously, by the time the police team reaches, and we've been told the Jammu Kashmir police team is on its way to the terror site.
Okay.
And this is where they will eventually go and give that final confirmation, because remember, photographs are one part of evidence. One is the physical identification. And if the NIA needs to be contacted for those 2 people who had actually given them some sort of food or logistical support, if they need to be called in, that will also be done. So this is going to take some time, but eventually, because they're saying they've looked through various photographs and they have come very close to the resemblance, and that is why the suspicion is these are the Pahalgam attackers. But remember, a final physical verification will be done. Need be a double verification will be done before they actually make it public.
Okay, but this does speak volumes about the training, tactics and operations of our special forces and Sandeep, security forces operating as a team, that terrorists were caught napping and literally and cut down.
Absolutely, Gaurav. I mean, this is a surgical strike, no 2 ways about it. And as Kamaljeet was saying, there's no sign of any bullets on trees, or, that canopy is also intact if you look at it. If this had been a classic firefight, I mean, there would have been shreds of, vegetation. That canopy would not have been in the condition that it was. And as you pointed out, Gaurav, there's a double tap on one of the terrorists' heads. That's Musa. And this is possibly he was taken out from a long range by a sniper rifle. And that kind of expertise only exists with the special forces, the paras SF of the Indian Army. And it's very clear that they didn't want to take any chances. And they closed in on these terrorists while they were in their hideout. And that's when they struck, and they struck with precision, with lethality, while these people were completely off guard. And as you said, Gaurav, justice for Pahalgam seems to have been served.
And as Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh said in Parliament, Shathe Shatyam Samacharet, that you deal with the enemy the way the enemy deals with you. No mercy when it comes to dealing with radical Islamist terrorists. Mir, keep tracking that story. I will come back to you for more. In a while from now, we are told security forces will give out more details. Moment there's a confirmation. General Dhillon, Kamal, Sandeep, many thanks for joining me.